Okay, today we're going to talk about this DD13-15-16 crankcase breather. Here you have the old one that came off the truck, and this is on the passenger side. Goes on like so. This part here goes on top, and then goes up into the side of the block. And I'll show you that when we get out there. Okay. I didn't do a video taking it on and off the truck for the plain and simple purposes. I had it go out on me, and I only had probably about 2.5 hours of daylight to get it fixed, and then head over to where my pickup was the next morning. So this bolts up to the passenger side of the block. I'll show you where it's at. Now, I had the part to fix this already in the truck, and I was told by a mechanic 3 different times that the part that I bought would not work because this was not the right piece. Okay, now I'm going to explain that. We're going to go out and look at it. Now, a misconception. This thing has leaked on me before. Just a little bit, just enough to kind of throw some oil around, let me know that it was leaking. So that's why I bought the part and had it under the bed for actually a couple years. I'm kind of embarrassed it was there that long and I had it go out. Now, I talked to 2 different mechanics when this started leaking on me about 100 miles from the house. They told me, because I was supposed to go pick up another load, which wasn't long. It was about a 45-mile load. Go pick it up, and then 45 miles back to the drop-off. And both mechanics told me I shouldn't be that big of a problem. I've never known one to leak more than a gallon or 2 in a day. Okay? No big deal. Now, I'm not really comfortable with that. If it's leaking that much, I just soon get it home and get it fixed. So I turned the load down, came home. I put 2 gallons of oil in it where I was at and when it was just leaving a puddle. I mean, I'd stop for 5 minutes and there'd be a damn near a volleyball size puddle underneath it. So it was leaking pretty good. I put 2 gallons of oil in it, headed home. I got 5 miles from the house, about 85 miles away, and the oil pressure started fluctuating and went to 0. So I didn't even make it home, and it went through 6 gallons of oil. I did have 3 gallons of oil in the truck that I threw it in there and was able to get it the rest of the way home. So when these things go to leaking, don't let anybody tell you it's not that big a deal. My advice, get it home. Now, I've had several mechanics, 3 or 4, tell me since then they've never known one to leak that bad. This one did. Okay, it was pouring out of that right there. That's your breather tube coming out of it, and it was just pouring. Like I said, I got shut down on the side of the road. If I would have done that other load, I'd have been 100 miles from the house in the middle of nowhere with no Walmart, nothing to even get oil in it to get it home. So I would suggest if it's leaking that bad, get the bad boy home or get it to a shop. Okay. Now, we're going to walk out here to the truck, and we're going to show you where it's at and what you got to do. Now, some of the tools I used, you know, a ratchet. I did use one with the head that moves on it. Makes it easier, and I'll show you why. And then you got a universal, okay? And then a long extension and a short extension, kind of switch back and forth. And then here is a Torx. And the Torx goes to the top right here. You've got one right here, and then you've got one on the other side. I'm trying to do the camera and do this too. I believe it was right in there. I actually stripped this thing out, or I would have taken this off before it came off the truck. Here's the piece over here that I ended up having to bend it to get this piece off of there, okay? So that's the tools right there. Right there, you're going to need a 13 millimeter and a 16 millimeter The 13 millimeter, you can use a shallow socket. I would suggest an open end. And you can use a deep well. 13 and 16 helps in a couple spots. And I'll show you where them are at. So let's walk out to the truck. Some new tires there waiting to go on the trailer probably tomorrow. We'll walk out here and we'll look at this bad boy. Now, I've had several videos say this is an easy deal. You know, but the couple I found had the motor completely out of the truck. And it's not that hard. It took me about 2 hours, but I kept running back and forth to the shed and back out here to get my tools. There's your crankcase breather right there. Okay, it is down inside the frame rail, underneath the turbo. So it's not hard to get to, but it's not easy to get to either, okay? It sits like that in there. All right, there's your bolt holes. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. They're down inside that frame rail. Okay, now, not hard to get to either. They broke loose pretty easy, not that big a deal. Now I broke them loose standing up here in this position, and I had to use that universal to go in between the frame and the spring right there. And on this side, I was able to break them loose standing up here. But on this side over here, I did break them loose going through the spring and the frame. Okay. There's your Torx that holds this piece on. Now, here's the deal with this piece right here. You can see the old two that I took off is held on by 2 bolts. Okay. There's the 1 bolt right there. And there's another one underneath. So that was a 13 millimeter. Take them off, this comes right off. Now, like I said, I tried to take this off when I pulled it, but one of those Torx stripped out on me, the one in the back. So I had to take it all out as one piece. It is easier if you take that tube off right there. I'll come back out here. Once you break these loose, okay, it will not come out the top. You can try here, you can come over here. It ain't coming out the top. It has to go down the bottom. So you break these 4 bolts loose, and then you see those wires down there. There's 1 cabling down there underneath. Back in here. That's the 13 deep well. Pull that nut off. And then you've got a cabling held right here. Take that apart. And there's another one. Let me find it right there. Take this off. And these cables will get where you can move them around. You're going to have to get underneath the truck. Get underneath the truck. Get this all loose. And you'll have to move it around and it'll come out the front. You'll have to come over and down the front. It will not come out the back. Those wires have it too constricted. You'll move them wires around inside the frame rail, get them out of the way, and then it'll slide out the bottom. Okay? And you're good to go. When you put it back up there, it has a gasket on it. And when you buy this, it does not come with the gasket. So when you go buy the crankcase breather, the DD13-15-16, get the gasket. You're going to have to get the gasket, okay? The gasket actually has flanges on it that you can stick the bolts in, and the gasket will stay on the back. You don't have to worry about it slipping around. Mechanics told me that was the biggest pain in the butt, and they've changed that gasket where it's easier to stay on that bolt. The best way to do it, you can start this bottom one. That bottom corner right there, you can start it from up here and get it. Just get it, you know, 3 or 4 rounds in there, and you can start this one 3 or 4 rounds, and you're good. Once you get those started from up here, go get all your tools and go underneath and start the other 2. The other 2 I found were a lot easier to do underneath. So take your tools, get those 2 started, tighten them up, and I tighten these 2 up from underneath. And then get all your wires put back where you took them down. Just, you know, take everything with you underneath, get it all buttoned up, and then you're good to go. And you can come back up here. Word to the wise, don't do it when it's hot. I said I only had 2.5 hours of daylight. That's why I didn't film it, because I wanted to get it done. So it took me right at 2 hours. But I had 200-degree oil flowing out of this thing all over my hands and arms. And that motor was hot. So if you can, I would suggest you come home, let it cool off, do it when it's cool. In all actuality, if you have all the tools you need, you're looking at an hour, and I could have done this. No problem. But I took my time because I've never done it before. Here, you see where I took it out. And this has an adapter that you can buy that screws in the block. And that's what the mechanic was telling me. This tube wouldn't go on the block. If you don't have that adapter, it's not a problem. You can take this, you can take the hose off of your old one. It's actually metal. It's heavy duty. This is just plastic, the new one. All you have to do is take those torque wrenches out, the torque screws out, pull that up, put the new, make sure you take the new O-ring out, and put it in this. Put it in there, put the clamp back on it, torque screw it back down, and then put this back on there with your 2 bolts. That's all there is to it. It's not that big a deal. And I was going to do that, but I kind of got in a hurry at the end, and I dropped both of my bolts, the 13 millimeter. I dropped them. Ain't afraid to tell you. And I'm out here working in gravel. So those bolts are still down there somewhere. I spent 30 minutes looking for them and gave up. So I went ahead and put the new one back on there. That adapter screws in the block. And all this hose does is just snap to it. It's easy. I'm glad I did this. But that is plastic that goes in that block. Treat it just like you would an oil filter. Screw it in there by hand. Snug it up. Get your wrench. Do like a 1/4 turn ugga-dugga. Not much at all. Maybe an ugg. Forget the dugga. But treat it just like an oil filter. Hand tight. Give it just a little bit. You're good. And then this hose just snaps on there. And you're good to go. No issues. Just let it cool off. If you have to replace this hose, if you don't have that adapter, it's no problem. Just swap this out. It is easier to take that pump on and off if this is not on it. So if you can get it off of there before you start, it's a good deal. The adapter, I kind of screwed the packaging up here. There's a part number. A00 looks like a 49971371. That is your adapter that you need to screw in the block if you have this style that you're replacing. Because when you buy that, it's going to come with that hose. So when you go to buy it, if you just want to screw that adapter in there and not mess with these screws, then this is your part number for that adapter. And when you take it out, you got 2 screws, 4 screws. Take that wiring loose, and that's it. Just word to the wise. If it starts leaking, don't let a mechanic tell you it's only going to leak a gallon or 2 in a day, because it sucked 6 gallons out of mine in 80 miles. So that was pretty severe. But really, it's not that hard of a deal to change. If you get all the parts together, it's an hour. With it being cooled off and you're not burning yourself, a novice mechanic could do it an hour and a half. I could probably do it now in an hour. It took me 2 hours because it was so freaking hot. But there you go. It's not that big a deal, but there's some pointers for you. Thanks.